You're great for logging in. Thanks so much. We've got another one of our Rural Voices seminar series from the University in Galway here today. And as always, we're coming from the discipline of geography in the university. And we, of course, do the Rural Voices seminar series in conjunction with the Department of Rural and Community Development. So we've had a number of wonderful speakers over the last number of years, and we have another one of those today. And it's absolutely delighted that we're here today with Pat Kennedy. And Pat has been a long association of ours in the University of Galway. And Pat is the CEO and founder of eTownz, and it's a company that is dedicated to supporting local development through structured frameworks and a lot of excellent digital tools. And Pat's going to share his vision today for a much more structured, modular, and collaborative approach to community development. So he's going to draw a lot on his own experience, on national projects he's been working on European projects he's been working on. So he's going to outline a new kind of a framework, I think, for planning and communications that might empower local actors. So I'm going to hand it over to Pat, and I'm delighted to have him with us today. So thanks, Pat, for coming to join us.
That's great, Maura. Very much appreciated, and look forward to giving this talk. As I generally say to people, I have a tendency to talk quite fast, so throw something at me if I'm talking too fast. And it's also a little bit different presentation that I've given before. Some people might have seen my presentations on our eTownz tools, but here I'm going to focus a little bit more on frameworks and structures for the development sector. And we're making a series of those tools and frameworks open and updatable. So I want to just explain those and get your thoughts on those at the end. I'm guessing you can see my presentation?
Yes, Pat, perfect.
Cool, that's great. So I'll just give a quick introduction. What we'll do, I'll give a short piece about ourselves. There's a couple of 4 or 5 key thoughts that are worth considering before we dive into things. Some of the work here is based on a smart communities task force which we ran last year. I'll talk about industry standards in general, a little bit of background research that actually myself and Maura done close to 10 years ago now, that's still, I think, relevant today. Then I'll outline the framework, a thematic framework, other frameworks that can sit in there, and then how these might benefit the various different stakeholders within the development sector. And I'll give you a very brief note on some of the work that we do, but I say the focus would be on these open source pieces. So I just want to start this. So we're a Dublin-based company, and we develop digital tools for the community development sector, and we also build things as required by players in the sector. My background is actually in engineering, but my interest was in community development. So I'm back into social studies and set up a tech firm. So it's an odd little route to get where I'm going to. The business is going 12 years, and we've undertaken quite a lot of research and partnered a lot of different organizations over the years on a wide variety of projects in this space, both at local, regional and national level. A couple of key ones just to mention. We were commissioned a little over a couple of years ago to write the Smart Village curriculum, which was paid for by the about 25 local development companies in Ireland. And after that, we were subsequently hired to deliver that program in 9 different regions and worked with about 40 communities there. So it was very hands-on. The framework that I'm going to show to you now is based on that. So they're all consistent here. And we learned a lot while dealing with community people at local level in relation to that. We were also the national coordinators for the Smart Rural 21 and Smart Rural 27 projects. And as part of one of those, we had to run a task force for smart villages. It was actually called a smart task force for smart communities by the end of it. And I'll be referring to that in the presentation also. So I just wanted to make some general statements before I dive deeper into the framework piece, and just which will kind of will be referred to later on. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but communities are a very, very important tool for change, be it for health, be it for environment. When communities come together as an interconnected network and don't work in silos, but work as a network and share best practice, and they can achieve so much. We have a lot of challenges coming at us in the future. And just a nice stat from the charity regulator that the people in Ireland, about 300,000 people in Ireland volunteer to a cost of about, which has a value of about 1.5 billion. Imagine a 10% increase in efficiency around productivity, to use business terms, but what that could mean. So it's just worth kind of considering that. I also like to show this slide here as well, to recognize that there's lots of national bodies, both public service and non-profit, which understand the importance of communities and run programs through communities. And my question mark probably would be sometimes they all do so in their own silos and design their own version of it. And then there's not enough consistency perhaps in these programs, and it makes more difficult then at community level when they don't come together and agree frameworks in how to deliver community programs. That's just worth, but there's lots and lots of consistencies here and similarities. They might have a different theme, but there's so much consistencies in the program that are delivered out. I will be referring to frameworks a lot, and obviously have a technology interest, but I often like to mention that technology is the enabler, really. Our key focus here is people, volunteers, and the organization that deliver at community level. So the technology supports the people. The technology is not necessarily the solution, but technology needs these frameworks so that things can talk to each other. This is also a statement I like to share with communities regularly, is that our key focus here is to bring together people with similar interests and complementary skills. So I often give the example that probably traditionally when we do community plans, there was sometimes a focus on declaring that they're going to find 2, 3, 4 big projects that everyone in the community can get behind. The reality is communities are endlessly complex. Old people, young people, people who are interested in energy, people who don't care about energy. So often when we say we're going to find 2 or 3 big projects and everyone's going to follow them, we lose people. I think there should be a real focus on trying to find out the collective interests and forming groups. Get the 4 people who are interested in cycling, the 7 people interested in tourism, the 3 people who are interested in biodiversity, and grow those groups. And the passion and interest of those people getting to interact with like-minded people from the community, that's what drives interest, what drives projects. I think it's a very important point that we need to continually refer back to. That group mentality is important. Another one that I think is also worth reminding ourselves is that it's very rare that someone gets involved in their local community because they love administration. But yet it's such a big part of community these days. So it can't be removed, but we could be looking at how can we reduce that and make it easier so people are doing more of what they love. These are a couple of bullet points that we had from after our Smart Village training around the country, and the key things that we're finding from the 40 communities we worked with. As I mentioned, administrative burden. There's some communities can be applying to 15, 20 grants per month. There's a lot of work involved in that. There's a lot more with GDPR, a lot more with insurance. So there's a lot of administrative burden, as we all know. consistently community champion burnout. The one or two people in the community who happen to be doing just lots of hours, who in their head knew everything that was going on and stitching things together, they want to step back a little bit, and they're finding it very difficult to find a like-for-like replacement. And I think it's a more better frameworks. We can actually divide up their job into 2, 3, 4, 5 parts and make it more digestible to get support on it. Getting youth involvement. A lot of the reports say youth want to get more involved, but on the ground is not what we're hearing. And they can't. So I think there's probably a mismatch in what youth want to get involved in and what they're being offered as projects to get involved in. I think recreational analysis is something that's really we haven't dug into yet. So what do younger, older, various different social groups in the community want to do? Communications is always a piece, trying to reach people that matter locally. How to better coordinate volunteers. How to have a metric system whereby we can compare communities to each other and see where there's opportunities and challenges. And there's so many low-cost projects that can actually be implemented with a lot less administration, a lot less hassle. And I think there's an opportunity to support that a little bit more. Another slide, I'm not going through this in detail, but we done a little bit of work on the Our Rural Futures plan there to analyze it. And the word plan is written in there 224 times, and the word integrated is 64 times. Most of them are together, integrated plans. And I'd question, are plans in Ireland integrated? So do we integrate our national plans into our regional plans, into our community plans? Is there a line that's easy to follow with all those? I question whether there is. And even at that, is there Our Rural Futures and other national plans integrated? So it's kind of worth considering. As mentioned, briefly mentioned as well, that we ran a Smart Village task force for a few months as part of Smart Rural 2027. And we had key national and regional stakeholders providing input into key ideas, which was presented in Brussels a little over a year ago. And a couple of key points that came out was we need to better integrate smart communities into smart regions. So no community, well, very few communities are an island, should I say. But they all need to work together as a group and as part of a county or a region. So how does that work? Again, greater integration into national policy, which I kind of touched upon, and look at this idea of development themes. You can see plans sometimes from one community and they talk about economic development. The next town has a plan related to business development, and the language is all inconsistent. So then there's no comparability. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to strategize and plan and collaborate. The fourth point there was just open data. Ireland has gone from one of the worst in Europe in about 10 years to now in the top 3 with regard to the release of open data. And the data is raw though. It needs to be put into a format which communities and counties understand to make maximum use of it. So there were some of the key points from the Smart Village task force. Just to mention a little bit about industry frameworks. They are, I think there wouldn't be as advanced in this sector as there would be in other sectors. But if they were, they provide a more clear structure. They can reduce duplication. They make for a consistent language and there's better use of data than when these frameworks can be put in place, and greater public engagement. Here is a very basic table, which I won't go through obviously in detail either, but I just tried to look and compare the standards and frameworks that are in place in the construction sector and the health sector. And imagine if those two sectors didn't have certain standards and approaches. A lot of things obviously wouldn't work as well. But I think if we can look at those other sectors and see the benefits they have to have consistency in approach across different organizations, that it can lead to far more productivity, less burnout, and all the pieces that I mentioned at the outset. So we've been working a lot in this space for many, many years. We're interested in the digitization component, but a prerequisite for that is to have standards. So we work a lot in the space, and we set up the it's simply a website called the Community Research Alliance, where we're sharing some of this information, and we'll be sharing more and more going forward. I'll talk today a little bit about two of the frameworks, so the theme framework and what we call the modular interoperable development framework. Sorry for the long name. And how these work and how they can be openly used, and we're absolutely inviting people to make their suggestions on how they might be changed in the future. And we'd hope maybe once a year at least, a new version of these will be released for the sector to use. So yeah, we would greatly value your opinion on those. And absolutely, you're invited to take them, to share them. You can share them with your IT departments. They can integrate them into their existing systems also. So that was kind of just to explain where we're going with things. I just wanted to mention also some primary research we've done with Mora many years ago now, where we downloaded about 130 community plans from across Ireland, and tried to get a feel for where things are at and characterize the sector. And the general kind of high level findings were the plans generally tended to be long, kind of 50, 60, 70, 80 pages long. And as such, they probably weren't being read by a large number of people within each community. The plans are often infrequent. They can be anywhere between 5 and 15 years a new community plan can be prepared. So COVID can happen, wars can happen, there can be greater focus on different things, but the plan is a moment in time. So we perhaps should look to models where plans can be more regularly updated by the community themselves. As I mentioned, there's a relatively narrow use of themes, and they're inconsistent. Different consultants and different organizations might refer to different types of themes, and as such, it was hard to have comparability in things. Because there was such a focus, because the plans were so infrequently prepared, there's a greater focus on the top down, the really large projects, and plans then often didn't reference the smaller projects, the simple projects that the Tidy Towns are doing, the Meals on Wheels are doing, the local GA club are doing. And it's important to include those to get a full picture, but also for people in the community to be able to identify with those. And plans sometimes tended to look more like documents which would offer guidance to a county council on infrastructure development, and less so on how communities can better organise themselves and take control of their community and help bring it to the next stage. So there were some of the findings that we had. A lot of our work has been looking at developing approaches around that. So we developed a framework. A lot of that was using the Smart Village curriculum, as I mentioned earlier on. And we have a version called MIDF, which is available, and people are more than welcome to use some of it or all of it, or contribute to the next version of it. So yeah, you can find it on communityresearchalliance.com. It's quite a simple approach. When we looked at all the community plans that we downloaded, we realized they're all contain the same information, but just all written in different formats. So big, long documents, long paragraphs. And actually one thing I forgot to mention was we noticed, I think about 23% of the plans said this plan should be updated on a regular basis. Of the 130 plans, we didn't find one plan which said this is an update of a previous plan. So this ambition to have updatable plans. But we realized, yes, we would like to make a more modular approach to community plans. And we could build it by using what we call community records. So plans all seem to contain the same sort of information, as I say, and we can build this with a database of what we call records, which simply has a title, has a summary, it has types, and it has themes. And these are the types that we've noticed. So these what regularly comes up within community plans across the country. You have assets, you have stakeholders, projects past, present, future, metrics, goals, and so on. So we think we can build, take existing plans and essentially put them into a spreadsheet format where we tag them a title, summary, and these types. And then what we also realized, they need to be tagged with themes. And we've done a lot of looking at the time and trying to find thematic structures that could be used. And we ended up thinking, okay, I think we need to go and dig a little deeper and develop out one. So I'll come back to this in more detail again, but that's the approach really. Is the and you'll see in the document, it's taking our plans, put them into essentially a spreadsheet format with title, summary, type, and themes, and then digital systems can deal with them. They can be updatable, and we can move forward in lots of ways. As I said, they're available on the Community Research Alliance page. I'll dig a little bit further now into the thematic framework. Again, it's quite simple. And trying to move the language, get consistent language across the sector and put some order into things. So there's 3 levels, and actually the last few weeks we're actually looking at a 4th level. And the top level is, you'll see it in quite a lot of other places. It's health, recreation, quality of life, environment, sustainability, business, employment and education, coordination, planning and management. And then there's one, so there's a misalignment there with some of the colors. You can see then level 2 that we have here and level 3. I'll briefly go through these in a little bit more detail, just to give you an idea. So for example, in health recreation, we've arts and music, and below that we've performing arts, art, music, and visual arts. And referring back to a point we made before, what a really important point to do is to bring together people with similar interest and complementary skills. So if we're thinking about things at community level, the people who are really interested in music may not be interested in performing arts, and vice versa. So we're trying to bring people together. We need to be able to tag them with this level of detail so we can know that the 3 or 4 people, they're actually music people, they love Irish music or whatever it is. We're going to see what projects they can take on. And likewise, there could be another group with performing arts. So it's important to dig into that and embrace that kind of complexity and detail in order to move things forward. These are the themes we have for environment and sustainability. I'll be sharing this presentation afterwards, and also I say it's downloadable as an Excel format from the Community Research website. Here's our business and employment themes. And finally, ones that were harder to put in, often harder to put into a structure, are in this level 4 or level 3. And also all available here. So those are 2 areas that we've worked on. We're making the information available, and we love to hear your feedback on the same. there's 2 or 3 other areas we think would really add value if people were interested in working with us. One is a metrics framework. Agreement that this is a good metric for cycling. This is a good, so we could, for example, get schools to run surveys on how many kids cycle to school. And if all the schools took the same survey the same way, and that was agreed upon, then it'd be very easy to start seeing pictures across a county, across a country, and seeing what where there's challenges and where communities have succeeded, and then helping the ones that have difficulties in these areas to look at the ones that are implementing best practice, and that could be again across all themes. We could have metrics at local or regional and national level, but by agreeing these as a sector in itself, we could do so much more. The other piece is projects library. If a community group decide to install bird boxes in the community, wouldn't be great if that was from a library where they all had their own ID, and then when another community takes on their project, they know, oh yeah, we're taking project 5721, and you're building then a network of knowledge sharing. At the moment, knowledge goes through consultants, and consultants might only arrive every 5 or 10 years. So if the community who done this last year and learned all the problems, were able to chat to the community that want to do it next year, or the community groups, we would have a much better transfer in knowledge. So a simple library that's referenceable and public could make a huge have huge impact in how people implement projects. One thing we often get is the grant application process, and hear a lot of people, communities talk about it, and a lot of the grants we find, and they just use different language. They want to, they might ask the same question, but might want the same information, but ask in a different way. I think there's a huge opportunity for such bodies who offer grants to work together, agree common language, agree kind of structures and so forth. It would make it then that when communities or groups want to apply for funding, maybe a third of their work can be got from a standard sheet that they've already prepared. And it's just about those groups recognizing that while they all might have their own thematic area, the people applying for them could be the same. So just a little bit of working together on that. So those were some of the ones that we've ideas on. Would love to hear other people's opinions on how we could develop those further over time. I have a couple of slides then on how these this approach could help different stakeholders within the development sector. So from a national body's perspective, if we better structure around our frameworks and our plans and our themes and our metrics, etc., we could better align national policies with regional and local plans. There'll be real metrics at local level, and they could also be aggregated to understand things at regional level and national level. So interventions could be far more targeted. There'll be more joined up thinking across multiple departments. A lot of communities now have SEC energy plans, but energy would also be a component or related to tidy towns and other plans. But yet they all exist in their own silos. So with better frameworks, they can easier pass and be part of a one system. And could obviously help reduce the administration and fragmentation. It's pretty similar then for the regional bodies, be it local development companies, be it councils. They can better align with their parent national policies. They get better collaboration with the communities that they work with, and understand whereby groups of communities want similar things and how they could group their support that they provide to them. And better benchmarking, better understanding of the what's going on in their county. For community organizations, a key part here is reducing administration and making them grants and funding mechanisms easier. And volunteer coordination, I think, is a key part here as well. Having systems whereby people know how to fit in to projects and how to get in around with things. And finally, the last group is obviously the local residents and volunteers. It helps locals find things they might want to get interested in, which is really key, and promotes involvement and participation. And a key part as well, it's looking to ways to reduce the pressure on champions. I see communities which had champions for 10, 12 years, they're stepping back and there's a real gap being left in that community. And we can't shy away from that real problem. I just wanted to show a few things then. Just checking time. Yeah, I'll be just in 5 minutes just to show a few other things to give you an appreciation on the Community Research Alliance and some of the work we've done. So people are welcome to visit the Community Research Alliance. Get a small bit of information on what we do. If you're interested, by all means, reach out and make contact. We have a few downloadable pieces there, and there's more coming soon. And one of them is this document here, which provides essentially an outline of what I've just gone through with yourselves, why it's been done, and free to use or versions thereof, and adapt it the way that you think yourselves. That's and as I say, I would hope to, based on feedback, get a new version or a version 1.02 later this year. We've also made available a thematic structure Excel sheet. So this is the structure that I showed you a little bit a moment ago, and here's how it looks. Here's a version that would be more suitable for your IT department who might want to integrate it. And it's important to notice that it doesn't require a complete overhaul of systems. This is just an add-on. It's a tagging system, really. So absolutely, the systems that have are absolutely perfect. This is just an extra tagging system. And when people all use the same tagging system, it allows the interoperability. We've actually seen the need to drill down into T4s, so we've been doing some work on that in the past few months. It's only draft version at the moment, but it allows you to drill into that deeper and looks particularly at national strategies and do they have essentially a home, thematic home. So that's freely available and will be updated. And jumping now to more the eTownz side of who we are, and some of the work that we're doing. So on the eTownz.com website, if you go to My Community, you'll see this page here, and we're just developing out, based on the modular approach that we developed and I've spoke to you about, a dashboard for Ireland, a dashboard for every county, and a dashboard for all communities in Ireland. Again, to try and get their assets and stakeholders, where possible, live and shareable and interoperable. So here's a very quick look at the Ireland dashboard. We've been extracting key national stakeholders, key national strategies, getting them into the system, and they can be tagged and referenced across the system then from a central pool, as this is growing all the time. We also have one for each council or each county, which will include the council departments, include county strategies, and various county level organizations. Again, at community level, they can be tagged and referenced in local plans. And then for each community, so just loading here. We've a page and for every community, which we're adding to also, which will provide them with their key groups. We aggregate calendars and news from their region and relevant stuff from national level, and we put in metrics for some of them also. And we've basically a free version and a paid version. And the free version, we're inviting communities from across the country to nominate themselves as the organization who want to be the local partner, even on the free version there. So this is kind of the page they can use, which we call the community website. And then here's the version whereby this is their database of all their records. And these are all title, summary, type, and theme, as I mentioned before. And as such, then can be create updatable plans. So here's a plan for Bundoran, and you can see it's a very modular approach where we present the plans like that. Just to mention also this every record. So we're taking a lot of open data. We've about 250,000 records in the system at the moment, and every record gets its own individual page. And the way then you can start trying to build teams by inviting people to say, yeah, I'm interested in that project or that team to try and support that piece locally. We've different variations of dashboard for tidy towns, for energy dashboards, and a variety of different types of groups, all using the same approach, but just a little bit different depending on their interests. We provide a spreadsheet so you can modularize your own plan, so you can take your existing plan and most plans you see, there's a table in it somewhere with your objectives or goals and projects. And if that's just marked up in a consistent manner, then they can be imported into any system. So it's here's an example of one we've done for our rural futures. And here's one we done with a village plan from Mulranny in County Mayo. So take their long PDF, get into spreadsheet format. We use that in our dashboard, but absolutely could be used in council systems or in community systems or in national systems because they all have a consistent approach and style. So that is actually a little bit ahead of time. So that is the summary of what I want to present to you. I hope it made sense, and more than happy to share anything else that people want. I'll put my email address in the chat in a moment.
Pat, thank you so much. Will I jump in?
Please.
You're okay. You're finished.
Yes.
Great. Pat, thanks so much. I suppose there's just an absolute an abundance of information. If nothing else, it is just unbelievable the amount of work, but also, Pat, the amount of free data that you have, between the different sites that you've mentioned there, the eTownz in particular, but also the other site that you mentioned as well. So there's an unbelievable amount of free data there. But I loved this idea about grouping people with particular interests. And I suppose one of the key things we see ourselves via research and volunteerism, and particularly the difficulties to get people to come forward, and the difficulties of getting people to come forward in small communities, in larger communities, and this idea that they feel that they're locked into, I suppose, a community group for many years, but then a community group that is working on interests that they don't really have any interest in. So I love this idea of grouping your interest. So Pat, so much there, but I'm going to open it to the floor. I know we've already got a good few comments in there.